If you apply for asylum now, how long are you going to have to wait to get your interview? In this video, I'm going to tell you how USCIS, the agency that handles affirmative asylum cases, schedules interviews. And I'm going to tell you how long you can expect to wait for your asylum interview if you apply now. If we're just now meeting, I'm Brian Manning, and I'm a former government asylum officer and diplomat turned asylum lawyer. And my law firm helps immigrants all across the country secure their future in the United States through asylum. Case processing times at USCIS are a huge problem. Many asylum applicants have been waiting for years to get their interview after applying. In fact, according to recent statistics, the backlog of people waiting for an interview had grown to over 436,000. And that was a few months ago, so that number is probably even higher now. USCIS is under-resourced. They don't have the personnel or other resources to keep up with demand. And what's really frustrating is that some of the applicants in that backlog have been waiting for not just months, but rather years to get their interview. And so many of them want to get on with their lives. They want to have their interview so they can get certainty regarding their future in the United States. And if you've asked around, I'm sure you've heard of people waiting 2, 3, 4 years or more for their interview. Someone recently contacted me who've been waiting for 10 years. And all of this makes what I'm going to tell you next all the more surprising. If you apply now, you're very likely going to get your interview very quickly. How quickly? Like around 2 months after applying. You heard that right, 2 months. Even though there are people who have been waiting for years, most people who have applied recently have gotten their interview in just 2 or 3 months. Now, why is that? Why are these people getting to cut in line? Well, here's the thing. USCIS used to use a first come, first served model for scheduling interviews, but now they don't. Now, under the old policy, when you applied, you'd be placed in line right after the people who had applied the day before you. And then people who applied the day after you would be scheduled for an interview after you. And that's how it works for most things. And that's how USCIS schedules most of its interviews, but not for asylum cases, or at least not anymore. You see, in January 2018, the Asylum Division changed its scheduling policy. It went from a first in, first out model to what they call LIFO, which stands for last in, first out. And this means the most recent applications, i.e. the last in, are prioritized with the goal of adjudicating them as quickly as possible such that they'll be the first out. They basically said, forget about the people who applied a long time ago. We're going to start fresh and worry about the people who are applying now. So before this change, yeah, there was a backlog, but at least you knew that USCIS was working its way down the line and that eventually that would lead to you. But with this new policy, LIFO, they basically said, we're just focusing on these new applications. And people with applications already pending at that time, well, they're probably going to be waiting a long, long time unless they sue the government, which you can learn about in other videos on my YouTube channel. Note that not everyone who's applied since January 2018 has gotten their interview quickly. Implementation of LIFO has been slow and uneven. Also, the COVID pandemic really messed things up and further contributed to the backlog because very few interviews were done for a couple of years. And even after COVID, not everyone who applies gets their interviews quickly. Some of them, for various reasons, just kind of slip through the cracks. But yeah, it's true that people who apply these days are getting their interviews quickly, most of them within a couple or few months. And it's been like this for at least a year. After we started coming out of the worst part of the COVID, maybe around spring of 2021, our clients applying for asylum started getting their interviews shortly after. Now, could this change? Well, yeah, of course it could. With USCIS, you never know. Their processing policies or other factors could make it such that new asylum applicants will have to wait a long time. But at least for now, if you're thinking about applying for asylum, know that you could have your interview really soon after applying. Check out my YouTube channel for videos on how to ensure that you're prepared for it so you can maximize your chances for success. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to support you in your asylum journey.